I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. We have yet another perfect pod awaiting you. We'll talk about Miami, under the throes of Art Basel, New York City movies, Zion being a large lad, body shamed, Pacers teardown, etc. Andrew Kuo, what has you excited on this dreary Tuesday afternoon?
The dreariness is not going to get to me, man. I'm not going to tear down my organization in my house. I'm doing incredible. I think things are going great. Trust.
The Kuo, are you talking about the Kuo rebuild?
The big Kuo rebuild is going swimmingly, man.
The Kuo-cedure, as they call it.
Yeah. Trust the Kuo-cedure. I'm doing amazing, man. It's just like
Great.
there's so many things to talk about, so many books to plug, many Christmas gifts to guide. What could I be talking about?
Have you heard of this new book, The Joy of Basketball? It's on the tip of everyone's tongue.
Wow, just the tip, and it
Hard in the
is-
streets.
it is not sold out as much anymore. Everyone can get it online, I believe.
You're saying it's possible for people to get their
It is
grubby
possible.
little mitts on a copy of The Joy of Basketball? Thank God.
There's room. These streets are saying there's supply chain issues because everyone wants their grubby mitts on this one item.
Because they can't supply The Joy of Basketball.
That's right.
From the best of my knowledge, you can get it again on Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble, those bookshop, the typical online retailers.
Right.
New York City, The Strand,
The
Books
Strand.
Are Magic. Books Are Magic.
Books are Magic in Brooklyn. Soon to
Yep.
be McNally Jackson. Rumors of it coming in any day now.
Greenlight Books has 2 locations, both in Brooklyn.
Yep. And if you're one of those people who like to order from the big online sellers, you can have it in one day, 24 hours, and it'll be at your doorstep.
So yes, finally, it is possible for you to experience the emotion of the joy of basketball. That's right. Anyway, onward and upward, I guess. I had kind of a bad experience this morning. I gotta be honest with you.
Man, what happened, dude?
I was out there trying to get some buckets.
Those buckets?
I was goaded into trying my hardened step back by a teammate. Do the hardened step back. You gotta try it. This is the only way you're gonna get better at doing it in games. Do the hardened step back. I tried it and I got
in-game.
I tried it in a game, 3-on-3, half court, and I got blocked.
That's a tough morning, man.
My confidence is cratered. A
Wow.
move that is designed to create space in order to get your shot off was tipped. Just, of course, the tip, but tipped.
So it was
Leading
like
to
a
an air ball.
deflection. It wasn't like a demonstrative rejection.
No, it was not like trebucheted out of bounds, like off of someone's head or something.
Right.
But it was deflected, fluttered like a wounded game bird.
That's humiliating, man. Whew, how
Yeah.
are you even potting right now is my question. How did you recover like this?
I don't know that I have, Andrew. I don't know that I have.
Will you be trying this move again in the future? Do
You're
you have to go back to
goddamn
the
right.
lab?
You
Gotta
are-
go back to the lab, man.
I might have to retool it.
Yeah.
Try it less around teens. With a degree of spryness that I was not equipped for.
They still have 90% of their knee working.
Okay, well, this is more of a mid-century style step back jumper.
But you'd think like the space you'd create hypothetically would make up for those centuries difference in the age.
Hypothetically, yes. In reality, Was not the case.
Well, did you win the game? Is what everyone wants to know because that's all that matters.
Sure did.
Do you guys spend money?
No thanks to my deflected 3-pointer, but yes. There's no money. We're just playing for pride.
Do you ever throw down like $100?
Never. No one ever plays for money like that.
Okay, I'm just curious. It's been a couple times I played for money.
I'm just saying I don't see it in the typical pickup run.
Mm-hmm. No, it's not.
It may happen at a playground. It may happen, at some gyms. In the NBA, what I've noticed is, as an NBA player myself, there's a lot of gambling on half-court shots. Lots of it. I don't know if it's in the shoot-around or in practice. NBA players love gambling on half-court shots.
Oh, yeah, just chilling, like not in-game. Not like buzzer. If you hit a buzzer beater, your teammates have to buy you Rolexes.
Yeah, when they're kind of screwing around in the gym post-practice or maybe post-shoot-around.
It makes total sense.
A lot of half-court shooting for money.
I mean, shooting is like the ultimate gamble, right? Like 50%, 39%. I'm hot. I have the hot hand, right? These are all blackjack terms or poker
Well, it's
terms.
also that outside of, a total anomaly like Seth Curry, the good of Curry brother. Most guys can't shoot half quarters anyway better
sure?
than the next guy.
Oh,
well,
okay, fair.
What I mean is a big guy still has a chance to make half quarters kind of on the same terms of like a 3-point shooter because it's a super far shot to begin with and they're bigger and it's kind of easier. Sure. It's not like having a regular 3-point contest is what I'm saying.
Right. Sure. I'm with that. So you're telling me NBA players like to play horse with money?
Horse for money, but kind of only that one shot. But maybe they do other stuff. That's the one I've seen. It's kind of a lot of, all right, $100 on this, $100, double or nothing, $100, double or nothing, double or nothing, double or nothing. Oh, it went in, $100. I don't know if it gets paid out or it's this kind of like rolling tally of hundreds of bucks that just kind of amass off of half quarters, or there are internal bylaws where you have to clear your debts by a certain time. That part I am woefully uninformed on.
Yeah, it depends on the person, right? If it's Javaris Critterton, you best pay him. But if it's Curry, I'm sure he'll let it slide. Those shots he hits from like the stairs within the arena, pretty impressive.
That's what I mean. He's a one of one. I mean, I would assume that most NBA players are excellent at shooting half court shots in a way that most people are not.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't bet with him.
No, it's wild. It's awesome. Yeah, man. So you have not
Parlor
won.
trick. It's a gimmick.
You have not won money on the court IRL. Because I'm saying this.
I've never even seen it exchange hands.
Okay.
At a pickup run. Maybe I'm looking the other direction, and it's always exchanging hands.
Right.
But considering how many times I've lost, I've never paid up.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, because in the virtual world, in the Second Life, in the meta basketball universe, in fantasy,
Web3?
I'm rich. The riches that reign upon me in fantasy are just extraordinary.
Most people don't know, but Andrew has basically lived off his fantasy winnings for decades.
This year isn't going so great because we have holiday gifts to promote. But, yeah, I could lose for the next decade and still be in the plus, baby. I don't know. Just draft good players.
Look, we're not turning this into a fantasy basketball pod. Don't reveal your secrets. And do you want me to bleep that? The one about the drafting good players? I can bleep it. I'll bleep
Listen,
it if you don't want
draft
your rivals.
players. Yeah.
Fat players?
Only fat players. Fat
Your
lever.
players?
Yeah.
Speaking of... Oh, yeah. Hold on. We got to talk about Basel. We got to talk about culture. Miami culture.
Yeah.
I did not go down there this year.
Yeah.
Been to Basel a few times, as I'm sure you have. I know you have. Well, I only saw a torrent of misery coming back from the New York representatives who are down there celebrating, carousing, and looking at wonderful art. What was happening down there, buddy?
That's some Twitter performative shit. It is a tradition to go down to Basel, immediately brag about the most impressive access you can get to drinks, food, celebrity, party, whatever. LCD sound systems playing, post, ASAP Rocky's sighting. I love all that stuff, obviously. But then it turns quickly into like, I need to get out of here. This is a hellhole. I've been awake for 72 hours. I used to go to Basel every year. I love Basel. And not only did the art part of it, but I also did the nightlife part of it, where we threw parties. We took our local party down south to Miami, and it was awesome every year. I'm at a point in my life where it's like the inverse bell curve. Like in my youth, it was awesome. I did all those things. I wanted to go home after 3 days like everyone else. And now it's just like, I can't sleep in bathtubs anymore, man. Even though there's pillows in those bathtubs, I can't like sleep on the floor of like a cheap Miami hotel. So I gotta get to my Obi Toppin years so I get pampered. But right now, I ain't going to Basel.
Well, that was what I was going to say. I do understand how draining it is, because you're generally not staying in a great location. You're out all night. You're not really eating actual meals for the most part. You're just eating at La Sandwicherie every single day, multiple times. So many
cold cuts, man.
So you're kind of just standing around eating sandwiches, never sleeping, growing more and more hungover and depressed as time goes on. That said, I've had fun at Basel in the past.
It's awesome. Miami is sick, man.
Big fan. I love the culture.
If all else fails, walk to the water. It's like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. We've talked about this. Not all beaches are created equal. The Miami is really, really nice. If you luck your way into a nice hotel, by all means, but the pressure to have N beer with 20 different people, you'll be having 20 beers, man.
The dynamic of New Yorkers going down there is weird, though, in that people from New York go down there en masse and hang out generally with the same people from New York that they hang out with in New York, and were hanging out with 2 days prior in New York, but are just now doing it in Miami.
Yeah.
Granted, there are people from all over, but for the most part, it is a bunch of people from New York hanging out in Miami with other people from New York, complaining about Miami, complaining about traffic, complaining about food, complaining about rain, whatever have you. You had a tweet, and this is why I'm saying this, based on your tweet, and you were like, imagine if a bunch of people from Miami all came up to New York at the same time, and within a day and a half, were just all on social media saying how much they wanted to get back to Miami.
It's called the NBA playoffs, when the Heat play the Nets. Yeah, it's really weird how we disrespect like one of the great cities on earth just because we are a little hungover. Like, this is a hellhole. I'm like, I mean, it's dreary in New York and wonderful. I love this city, but like, aren't you like 200 feet from the beach, from like amazing white sand? I feel bad every time, and I get it. Like, it is tough to party like that at that clip, especially when you're just seeing homies from New York. But the disrespect, man. Shout out to our day ones from Miami who have to swallow these criticisms. Every year, New Yorkers stumble down, entitled New Yorkers, and make fun of La Sandwiches next to great bar.
Great bar.
Great bar.
Deuce bar. Great sandwiches. By the way, today, Miami, sunny, 83. Wednesday, 82. Thursday, 81. Friday, 81. Saturday, 81.
Sick.
You get the idea.
Sick. Yeah.
New York, how is it right now? I see that it's overcast and 41, but tomorrow will also be overcast in the 40s, as will Wednesday. But we're going to dip down to 39 as a high on Thursday, then it'll be cloudy. Anyway.
There's a New York tradition for claiming horror at like nice weather, right? Like we do kind of the same thing with LA. Just like we haven't seen snow here or rain here. It's just like sunny every day. I'm losing my mind. That's a vibe, right?
It is. I do have sympathy though, because for people who go down who don't have like family or relatives to stay with, hotels on South Beach are wild expensive.
Yep.
Just extraordinary. We're talking $500 a night. If you're in your, I mean, for anybody that's a lot. But if you're going down there and you're pretty young, there's no way you're stitching together like $3,500 to stay down there for like a week. You're just not doing that unless you have, really unique income sources.
Yeah.
So for the most part, you're staying in very grisly Airbnbs.
Yeah.
Or like dirt cheap hotels that are gross.
And it's a challenging week because I think a lot of people may expect to have access or gain access to all of these events, and one fancier than the next, right? And that's a lot of pressure. It's just like, oh, are you going to the Chanel party? And it's just like, no, I wasn't invited. It's like, well, I can get you in. It's like, well, it takes like 20 minutes to get there. It's just like a lot of rat racing around, which is taxing for sure. When I went down there, I would just take the path of least resistance and just kind of go to the beach with like somebody I like to talk to. I went to Joe's Stone Crab alone, like during the afternoon. I was the only one at the bar. It was fucking awesome. Like, it's a cool city, but I get it because New York is also great, but during Fashion Week, it can get hectic if you have expectations.
And also, this is not a complaint coming from someone within the art world, because I have never gone down to Art Basel with art being the focal point. That's just not the industry I work in.
Sure.
But I will say, it did explode in popularity, which has led to like so many more people. I'm sure the traffic is just outrageous. So many events that are now spread all over the place. It's the sort of full-scale festivalization of everything. Yeah. And that happened with South by, it happened with Basel, it happens with Fashion Week, it happened with, I guess, Coachella. Just that idea that something that starts relatively small by design keeps enlarging until it's kind of so huge that anyone can get whatever they want out of it. Right. Which doesn't mean that it's whack, because you can still do what you intended on doing for the most part. It's just the scale is totally different. Yeah,
and I was joking with one of my art friends. It's like, of course, the money has sequestered itself into a different area. So Art Basel's kind of done midweek for the big money stuff. And then it kind of like gets handed over to nightlife, and that's where people do their social networking. I was joking, like, it's going to extend so far. It's like, oh, it's January. I got to head down to Art Basel 2023. It's just like, or 2022. It is, the business is done by Thursday. And by the time the fair opens to people, it's kind of been decided, And then
I feel like the flex is going down Tuesday, leaving by Thursday.
That's what art people brag about now. I've seen a lot of kink shaming, being like, I'm going to Basel on Friday. And they're like, Friday? I'm gone by Wednesday. I'm like, yeah, this is what happens, But I was laughing because, I'm very into NFTs, and there's a lot of stats coming out with NFTs now in both diametric oppositions, right? Like there is people who have made $300 in the last year selling artworks, being like, the gallery system is not for me. You can do it without it. $300,000 is a breathtaking amount of money, but the amount of money getting moved for just paintings in Art Basel is astounding. So like that industry, it's hard to upend an industry that is designed to upend itself. There's like a few.
You mean
rules.
as in, well, NFTs can't upend the art industry.
Well, people hope it could happen, but it can't happen.
But I mean, it can't, because you're actually selling the same thing as art, but it's not something that you can put on your wall. Right. It's not something that you can look at or exchange. I mean, of course, you can exchange. I guess that's the wrong phrase. But what I mean is art already serves that purpose, correct?
Yeah. I believe what NFT dorks are talking about, myself maybe included, is upending the structures of where the money flows from into, because if you follow any industry, there's a centralized kind of gatekeeping community, and the NFT crew is interested in maybe taking bites out of that.
Right, but also I saw an article I think yesterday that was saying that like the overwhelming amount of money that's been made, the profits on NFTs are by an incredibly small amount of people who are putting all these, who are like creating them and have huge numbers of them at a discount or, you know, for nothing. So it's just, as you said, it's upending it and like creating a different set of people who are benefiting versus an egalitarian system.
And in that article, it's like I think 75% of NFTs sell for around $15 US dollars, Ethereum translation. The most interesting thing happening with NFTs is, you know, we talked about it weeks and months ago. It's not like abstraction is making a splash like screensavers. It's like these little cartoon Garbage Pail Kid characters, whether they be like digitized punks or zombie apes. But a lot of real world bias is being seen in that world where minorities aren't as traded heavily. Maybe female characters aren't sought after as much as like the white male characters. It's pretty fascinating, right?
Hard to believe.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a way. It's hard, right? It's like, how come 5'5" Asian guys with glasses aren't the most heavily traded thing? I'm like, I don't know if we'll ever be, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah. All right, that's enough about NFTs. You've had your dose.
Love that NFT talk.
You've had your fix. Speaking of addicts.
So what is this? Speaking of cities.
Speaking of addiction. Powerful addiction. All-consuming addictions like yours for NFTs. Did you watch the HBO documentary Life of Crime, 1984 to 2020, which documents a trio of heroin users in Newark, New Jersey? You did see this, correct?
I did, and for anybody listening now who hasn't seen it, don't see it. It's sort of like the movies, we talk about this, like I don't want to cry knowing that I'm going to cry, like I still haven't seen Minari, but like this is an unwatchable documentary, not because it's not good, it's because it's too sad. You do not watch this.
Did you see parallels between your addiction towards...
There's
NFTs.
No way you can do this.
No,
yeah, it's hard to make a joke about some bullshit like what this documentary is about, right?
So this documentary is it is absolutely punishing. I don't agree with you that you shouldn't watch it, but you have to be prepared for it because
it's going to ruin
crushing.
your damn week. Yeah.
So, as the title indicates, it is basically giving you 3 decades of catching up with, following, and incredibly intimate access with these 3 people from Newark, who are in and out of the criminal justice system, off and on heroin, and the footage is just incredibly harrowing. It starts out with completely just dynamic stuff. It's these 2 guys,
Youth. Yeah.
as young, in their early 20s, I guess. Stealing from stores, shoplifting in order to, supply money for their families and have money for bills and drugs and things like that. And they're funny and they're clever and they're charismatic, and then you just see their lives falling apart, but not over the course of a year. It's like, this is 1982. Now we're at, 1984. Now we're at 1991. Now we're at 1996, and you just see them kind of falling apart as human beings, up until the last decade.
Yeah,
And it also it actually ends during the pandemic.
like there's no way to talk about this like without like discussing just like the raw stats of it. And it's like it sucks, man. Like me and you have had 20, 30, 40 friends, acquaintances pass away from heroin, and like it is brutal to watch happen. And I think in New York, when you watch something like this on TV on HBO, it really reflects like something I just see outside of I walk out of my house and I see the same people suffering the same things on my street every day. And they've been here for a while, and I hope to see them tomorrow, because if they're not there tomorrow, I don't know. I just don't know. But it sucks, man. And I think the takeaway, if we want to have a podcast discussion about it, is there is no support for this. And New York City just introduced safe injection centers, which I am in love with. I think they should do more of that stuff and give them help in a safe location. They estimated that maybe they've saved double-digit lives already, because there have been overdoses inside the facility. And this goes to all this complication, right? If they feel safe, they're going to push it harder and farther. But this is a problem that is not easily fixed, because it's not lazy people. These people want to get better. It's just the drag and the weight of this drug is insane.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of putting it. I would also say what I found really kind of devastating about the documentary was because of when it was filmed, in the mid 80s, it was visually very recognizable, but recognizable from when you were a kid.
Right.
And to me, that added to a sense of kind of helplessness.
Right.
Because it was so familiar, and it had this odd dynamic of both being people who are younger than us while they're being filmed, in their 20s, but looking like the adults that I recognized from when I was a little kid. And, across the street from where I lived, there was a house that they sold drugs out of. And this is what they look like. I'm not saying it was a heroin, dealer, but just the looks and the style and the fashion, the way that the cars were, and just everything about that 80s and early 90s just kind of threw you back into being a kid and seeing these characters and these people around you. And then you see the kids in the documentary. So I'm not implying there was a personal element of my experience being like this, but just from the specific kind of aesthetics and the camcorder and just everything from that era is like of our age, basically.
Yeah, one thing that got me in the documentary was, to your point, seeing New York City through the eyes of my memory of it growing up here, and just like seeing these people around and thinking they were just adults. Now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, they were heroin addicts, they were dealers, they were hustlers, right? And
But
they
they were also young. That was
You're right.
the thing that was
Well, they
also
were in their
shocking.
20s.
Like,
Yeah.
right, these people who I looked at as the grown adults who looked exactly like the people in this documentary, and some of them who behaved that same way, were also super young. Yeah, it was disorienting. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, and I think like the sad thing now is you walk through New York City, and these you can kind of tell what people are suffering from, right? Like you can just tell by the way somebody is standing that they had just shot up, or they're looking for something, and it is hard to like respect the place you live in and take part in your community and try to help your community and do more than four things, right? And eventually that fifth, sixth, seventh thing will you'll see it, and it's just like at that point, I know why people are so into politics, right? Because it is a way to enact change on a broader scale. But as one person living in a neighborhood that is currently overrun with heroin, it's frustrating, man. It's just like, I don't have enough cash on me. I gave it all away up the street, you know, and like I can like buy more food with my credit card, but like I don't know. Eric Adams, do your thing, right? Like help these people.
I mean, I felt that watching people trying their best and then being drawn back into addiction, and their explanation was always that like this drug is so powerful, right? It's, just to get out of the grasp of that drug, and of course everyone says heroin is hyper addictive in that way, that it is a great high, and we know people like Philip Seymour Hoffman and many others who had, by outward perspective, like a great life. They were respected and beloved and successful and all these things, and yet still turned to this drug. But what's also clear from this documentary, in my opinion, is that these people are drawn back into it just because it's better than what they have, and they're in rough situations where all they can do is sit around. They have bad jobs, bad apartments, bad family scenarios, bad
No one
health.
will hire them. Yeah.
And like at some point you're like, oh, what am I doing this for? You know what? I liked getting high. That I can tell you was good.
Yeah.
Being fucked up on heroin, I liked how I felt in that moment.
Yeah.
So you see the seduction of it. I'm not disputing that as a substance it's addictive, sure. But I do think that the addictiveness is just the escapism a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I have like two types of friends, right? Like a recovering friend I know is always like, I can be around you guys drinking and smoking and hanging out, and the bar life doesn't faze me. But if someone puts a bag of heroin on the table, we have a problem. Just because it's so good. It's like, he's like, I just know how good it is. And he's okay. He's doing great. And then I thought about Anthony Bourdain a little bit. And of course, I think he died of a broken heart a little bit, more than anything. We don't know for sure. But, he talks about his years of doing heroin and how it kind of defined his show and his adult life and his worldview, recovering from this danger and helping other people get out of it and seeing the world. And in his last moments, I always think, like, did he think about it? Like, what created this person everyone loved, and what made him get to this point, right? And we can define broken hearts in many ways, but I'm just like, that fucking drug, man, you can never run away from it.
Yeah, and I also think the appeal of heroin is also how do I phrase this? The self-loathing that I'm sure people feel about being unable to shake it is something that also makes you want to use it. Like that's a real like vicious cycle for addiction.
Yeah.
Like I want to break this. I feel like so gross that I can't get away from this. I might as well get high.
Yeah. Not to bring it back to basketball, because this is a basketball pod. By the day, it seems I'm getting more angry at the idea of wanting it more. Like, fuck wanting it more. In this documentary, to various degrees, especially the woman, wanted it really bad. She wanted a good life more than I wanted a good life. She was kind of a hero, right? And like, the world kind of works out in a way that doesn't really reflect that idea. And I'm just tired of people saying that if they were in the situation, this is what they would do. Or the reason why someone doesn't have something work out is because they just have to really grind it out. Like, this documentary shows people grind it out, and sometimes you have control, but you don't have the power.
My understanding of that documentary is that it was started as a counter to the show Cops, because the Cops focuses on law enforcement only.
Yeah.
And basically views everyone else as kind of like a criminal who just arrived on the scene. Like,
oh yeah.
here's a criminal. Like, there's no context. It's just a criminal is here. Go get them. Here's someone who broke into a place. Arrest them. Someone's on the run. Chase them down. Put a knee in their back. Cuff them up.
Like Middle
cops
Eastern war movies
on
where,
location.
yeah, they just people in garb just roll up and you just mow them down with a machine gun.
Exactly, and that's what this was, right? The war on crime, and look what we have here. We got ourselves a criminal, and this was designed to counter that by they called it the life of crime, but there wasn't even that much crime in it, really. It was just drug addiction and some shoplifting.
Right.
And it was designed to basically say, let's humanize these people who are being arrested on TV in this hugely popular show. And I think that was like one of the cited as an inspiration for it.
Yo, Cops was around in the 70s?
No, they started filming this in 84.
Oh, 84. My bad. Cops was around in 84?
Apparently so.
Damn.
Or maybe they did a second part of it. Again, this was just what I read, so I don't have any actual insight onto this.
Yeah.
I never have any insight on that.
Yeah. I mean, it is. Yeah, I take it back. You should watch it. It's just, it's interesting. It's fascinating. If you can remove yourself from like the despair part of it, which is like helpful sometimes, it is a fascinating view into a world that is being lived by a lot of people.
So Cops started in 89. So maybe they started filming this before then, and then it was put out. I don't know. Anyway,
Just the idea
maybe
of cops in movies, right? Just like criminals rolling up, just being a dime a dozen.
Yeah, again, I can double check that at some point, but whatever. Yeah. It was something that was, yes, it was cited, but there were also 3 different parts of this when it was filmed. Like the first part was filmed and released, and the second part was filmed and released, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Speaking of cops.
Speaking of cops and grimy tales, did you see this New York Magazine list of the top 101? Apparently they just had to get that one in there. New York City movies.
Wow, did I? What a list, man. And is a quintessential New York movie a cops and robbers movie? Is that what we're saying?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I was impressed. Their number 1 movie was The Interpreter with Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
And number 2 was Teenage
technically-
Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. And I thought both of those were a bit predictable, but also worthy choices.
Technically, The Interpreter took place mostly in the UN, which is technically not New York City, right?
Wow.
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 Wow. We're talking. It's undefinable as a New York place, as they want you to believe. I spent a lot of time in the UN as a kid. That place was awesome.
I've been to a wedding there. It was cool.
Oh, in the church across the street?
No,
Or
in the UN.
the UN, in the proper UN?
In the UN itself. The dinner was in there.
Nice.
We all hung out on the little patio over the water there. It was sick.
I mean, we've talked about this with the god Pablo Torre, but I had my father worked at the UN his whole adult life, so I had the option of going to the international school there. I kind of wish I did. I ended up not. It's a whole scene of the international scene. Nicole Kidman running around solving world crises.
Life of crime.
Yeah.
So the list. Let's just start from the very top here.
Yeah.
They're number 1. And then we'll go through the next 101 movies. Next 100. 25th Hour, the number 1 New York City movie. How do you feel about that?
I feel like that movie is a bit talked about too much. It's not a bad movie, but I just think the grief of 9/11 and having no real text to put along with it has elevated it quite a bit. It's fine.
So there, to your point, their opening line here is, Spike Lee's masterpiece is already the greatest 9/11 movie.
Right.
But it also happens to be the greatest New York movie.
I mean, maybe. Everyone's like, yo, Edward Norton represents the entire city. I don't know why I did dumb voice there, because it's true. I just thought Spike Lee, I think, had like a dip in his artistic production, and that was in that dip. I think he came back pretty strong though.
I love that movie. I think it's great.
Naturel Rivera, great character name, right?
Great character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I am surprised by how it has become a beloved movie. You know, when it came out, I enjoyed it a lot, but it didn't seem to have that kind of critical response in like the immediate sense. This does seem to be something that, as you said, has been added over the last 20 years.
Yeah, it ages well, no doubt. There was this like really smoky, kind of earnest, kind of like drawing blood from a stone era of Spike Lee movies that he was figuring something out. I think he refound his like youth, I think, a little bit later, sort of like the life cycle of Miami Basel.
I could see that. But is the 25th Hour Spike's last great movie?
No, let's go through his IMDb. Not at all. It certainly isn't the Phil Jackson. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry. I was Googling Spike Lee and I was like, did I log off? It wasn't the Phil Jackson Triangle documentary. That was difficult. But let's go. The Five Bloods was better. That was a wonderful movie, right? Netflix.
You say that's better than 25th Hour?
I do.
Wow.
Quickly, I say that. I'm not a huge 25th Hour fan. I found
Clearly.
I found the allegory to be necessary and cool, but also isn't his greatest effort. I don't know. Black Klansman, I thought was better. I thought his documentary about 9/11 was probably should be in the Smithsonian. I don't know.
Interesting. I did not think Black Klansman was in the same category. Yeah, which I liked it, but I did not
I thought it was
view it as a great movie by any means, other than just being good.
How about this? Maybe in the era of 25th Hour, Spike Lee was trying to talk to the biggest audience possible, the world. And then by the time he was back to Black Klansman and the Five Bloods, he was talking about more personal stuff.
That may be true. But it's funny because I'm just looking at the press. It does seem to be the 9/11 connection really has sold people on the 25th Hour. And to be honest, it wasn't really about 9/11.
Oh, it was all about 9/11, no?
Well, what I mean is it just kind of took place right after that, right? I mean, it had the lights. It had some references to it, you know, but I don't know. I didn't.
But
did you view it as a 9/11 movie?
I did.
I'm trying to think about this. Yeah.
Because Edward Norton represented the ethos of New York and the suffering, the smoldering ashes of a former greatness, right? And coming to terms with maybe restarting or a redemption. And I don't think it was necessarily a pro-America, pro-New York movie, but I think it had complications in it that were interesting. I think Edward Norton's entire character in that movie from start to finish represented the post 9/11 New York. I don't know. Maybe not. I thought that was the only reason to make that movie, right? The 25th Hour meaning.
Well, but I'm not disputing that, but the 25th Hour was published in 2000 as a book.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't mean that Edward Norton didn't represent New York in the movie.
Changed. Yeah. I mean,
it was.
Back me up, New York Magazine. The quintessential 9/11 movie, right? I mean, what other movies took place during 9/11 that we can recall that like are New York centric? Not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, not Home Alone 2, not New Jack City, which was earlier. Like it was a hard thing to tackle, right? I've seen other movies since then that have discussed it, like Like I'm surprised no one did like Paul Auster, like City of Glass with a 9/11 spin. That could have been really easy. Um, I don't know. One of the great movies that isn't on here is Smoke by Wayne Wang. I don't know. There's a lot of omissions. To your point earlier, off air, Kids isn't in on this list.
Yeah, no Kids, no Panic in Needle Park, and only Annie Hall as far as Woody Allen movies. I think it would have been impossible to not include Woody Allen, and that would have been too much of a statement by itself.
Yeah. No Good Time, which is weird.
But not having Manhattan is weird.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's hard to do this list. This list was fine. It was arty as hell. There's a lot of like old movies. There's a lot of obscure movies. Whatever. This list is good enough for me. Chan is
Yeah, I do
missing.
like.
Oh no,
I like the list.
Yeah.
And I found it pretty unpredictable. Like the number 3 movie they have is Sweet Smell of Success, which I don't even know. It's a movie from 1957. But me not knowing that movie does not speak to the excellence or significance of this film. I just can't watch movies from the 1950s.
Imagine my shock and disappointment scouring this list and not seeing the famous documentary Eddie on there.
That's insane. Also, where is your favorite movie of all time? The International.
Oh, the Googs. The Googs got shot up, man. Clive Owen. I love that movie, man. Shoot up that museum.
Why isn't Kids on this list, though?
Is it because the subject matter is like difficult to talk about right now, and you just get people reacting to the visceral things that happened in that movie? Like,
I don't know.
I'm sure Manhattan was on their list, and they're like, "We can't have this on our list. We got to take it off." It's too much going on. It's too much going on in that movie.
I mean, look, there have been so many films set in New York that when, Saturday Night Fever is 82 and Midnight Cowboy is 81, like we're talking about tough comp.
Yeah.
Like the Wild Style, like 88, like just squeaked in like the seminal graffiti movie.
Is the Warriors in there?
Breakdancing movie. Yeah. Warriors is in there, yeah. Mm-hmm. Uncut Gems 91.
Yeah.
Uncut Gems, I like it. It's a good movie. Great movie even. Over Kids is tough though, right?
Kids is a very formative movie for me. Larry Clark's vision of the city, I think, shaped my vision of the city. Him and the BC Boys, maybe. Kids was everything. Rest in peace to Harold Hunter. But like, it's funny that 25th Hour is the number 1 movie on this list and stars an actor from Kids who got her start on Kids.
Kids not making the list and Ghostbusters 2 being on it. Interesting.
This is why we love lists. The most toxic NBA players, Dame Dollar.
Is he number 1?
Arguably. Let's do it. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Are you sure? I think we get to it right now.
Yeah. All he does is sell out his teammates. He's a number 1 Apex gaslighter. He knows what he's doing. He's a battle rapper. He's not. There's no mistakes here.
So let's look at what Mr. Lillard. Sorry. I'm sorry. Who are we talking about again? Oh, right. The Blazers. Yeah. So Dame he's talked a lot about how he won't run from the grind. That he wants to stay in Portland. I
love it.
But he wants to win there. It's loyalty to Portland for some reason, because they drafted him. Because he feels like being there, because he's the best player in franchise history and he can just own that title. And if
Locals
he retires
only
there, he will go down.
It's a big
that.
90s rap thing, right? Like Cities is a big 90s rap thing.
That checks out. And he likes juxtaposing himself to other stars who bounce around, the LeBrons and the KDs. And he's not as good as them, but he is more loyal. And that, in the minds of some people, elevates his stature. to that of guys who are clearly better at basketball than he is. Like James Harden is without question a much better player than Dame Lillard, who is very good. But James Harden's a different dimension. But James Harden asked out of Houston and went to Brooklyn, where he joined other superstars. Kyrie, in my opinion, is better than Lillard as well. But he asked to be traded, and then he left Boston. So, again, Lillard, great player. This is not even a knock. But he gets brownie points for his loyalty to Portland, and he knows this. At the same time, he's constantly drumming up attention by causing speculation over whether he will ask for a trade, whether he will ask out. So the most recent development here is him saying, I think we should trade, or him being reported as saying, or it being some of his media mouthpieces, I believe, have kind of let it be known that he would like Portland to trade for Ben Simmons. Now, if you're going to trade for Ben Simmons, who is a 3-time All-Star and All-NBA talent, the best defensive player in the current NBA, it would require his teammates to be involved in this procedure. So he's namely CJ McCollum, maybe Robert Covington, maybe Anthony Simons. Or is it Simmons? I forget.
Simons.
Simons.
Big Nurk involved?
Whatever the case, there's going to be a bunch of other players, the guys who he is currently sharing the court with, in that deal. That's pretty spicy.
Listen, I'm totally happy with my life partner. I just want them to be a bit taller and richer. But I'm totally happy with my life partner.
No, I want to be here. It's my teammates that I want to leave.
Yeah. I mean, it is foul, right?
I'm loyal to Portland, not CJ over there.
Yeah.
He can get fucked. Portland. Now that place. Love it.
To Dame's
Love the food
credit,
trucks.
he reads the room. He knows how sports media works, and he knows how fandom works. He's gonna pull this off. There's gonna be people defending him forever. Be like, okay, he forced CJ out of town for another player. That didn't work out, and then he forced his way to Brooklyn to play with KD. But he gets a pass because he did it the right way. He knows he has this, right? It's his language. It's the way he conducts himself on the court. It's the fact that he's like a no-nonsense lyricist who's constantly in the lab when he should be in the gym. So I think he's like really framed himself in a clever way. So he knows he can kind of like flex a little bit where other players can't.
I mean, he definitely can, because this is a team where he will never be blamed for their flaws. They are ranked 30th in defense. I mean, he is arguably a bottom 5% defender in the entire NBA. I mean, he is a terrible, terrible, terrible defender, but that's also not really his job.
Sure.
He's the scorer. He's the distributor. He's the offensive spark plug. That's what he does. So the other guys are the ones who are responsible for the team's main flaw, which is defense. Although, of course, what I'm saying is that he is also liable as well, because he is extraordinarily bad at defense.
He was getting picked on in the Olympics. That was the only weakness of the Olympic team, the perimeter defense, and Dame wasn't essentially
he is an absolutely abysmal defender. He is not good on the ball. He's even worse off ball. He loses sight of his man. He doesn't help at all. He doesn't close out. He's a terrible, terrible defensive player.
But he wants to be a good defender, and that's what counts.
He wants other people to make the defense good.
Right.
We should get Ben Simmons. He likes to play defense, unlike me.
Yeah. I mean, to Lillard's credit, he wants Ben Simmons. Every player wants Ben Simmons on their team. But, that's why Lillard, when you say, Harden is better than Lillard, I totally agree. And even Kyrie, I like that take. Because on the show, you always bring up, mortals versus gods, right? And Lillard straddles the line of that because he has certain weaknesses. I don't think he's a god of a player.
I view him as a mortal.
Yeah, I do too.
A mortal.
Yeah, but he has signs of being on that Harden Durant tier. He's just not. He's just not the same player.
I mean, we talk about that in this book. It's called The Joy of Basketball.
Oh,
People
I heard.
love to bring him up as a comparison point
Is it the shape
because
of a
he's not
stocking?
actually a threat. Oh, you talking
Yeah.
about the book, the Perfect Present? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of the shape of a boot, like Italy, or a stocking that hangs on your mantle, or your loved one's mantle. But yeah, I mean, Lillard having this kind of buzz and power over what he thinks the team should be is funny to me. I don't really see him as like a player who can command that kind of a time and attention, only because like the Blazers are where they are right now because of Damian Lillard, not despite of Damian Lillard.
Look, I'm not even trying to rag on him because he is a bad defender, but I will stand on this though. He is the one who should be able to say, "Here's what I want to happen with the franchise." He's right in that regard.
That's fair.
100% right.
Yeah.
Because Neil O'Shea is gone, so the builder of this team has been fired for creating a toxic work environment. That he's gone. Chauncey Billups, he just arrived. Whatever, he hasn't been good as a coach, but he has no responsibility either way. He's coached 20 games.
Right.
So it's not Chauncey. Right. So who is it? Who gets say-so over this organization and its direction and how to figure things out?
Might as well be Lillard.
Dame is completely entitled to that opinion.
Sure.
This is his show at this point.
Sure.
There's no one else who's invested in it, whether it's, in terms of like sweat equity. It's just him. I mean, sure, there are guys like CJ, but ultimately this is Dame's show, and he's right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, you could say like Paul Allen, but
rest in peace.
Paul Allen didn't touch net. Like it's Dame. He's right. I can't him doing all these toxic hijinks, pretending to leave and saying I'm not going to run from the grind, then basically trying to get his teammates traded. There's no right or wrong here, man. He's in his. This is his job. If someone's going to save this franchise, I guess it's got to be Dame.
This is kind of how I feel about Philly at this point. It's just like, cool, definitely, guys, figure it out. Until then, like Philly as it is composed now, and the Trailblazers, even with another superstar, you guys aren't on the level of the top tier. So like after a few hypotheticals, I'm like, well, it's like you're going to put yourself into a different kind of purgatory. So, like, this isn't as dramatic for me because there is no world changes here. Do you know what I mean?
100%. And the main thing here, though, is that not everyone can win a title.
And it's usually the same team. Yeah.
It's the same teams and the same players over and over and over.
Yeah.
So when you say, I'm Dame Lillard, the problem here is that we don't have enough talent around me to win a title. And I'm like, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
But the other problem is that you're Dame Lillard. And you're a very good player, but you're not a top 5 guy.
Right.
You're not the kind of guy who can just brute force your team to the finals by virtue of your talent. Yeah. You're really good. You're one of the best players who's ever played the game. You are so freaking good at basketball.
Yeah.
You're also not as good as Steph Curry or Kawhi Leonard or
Kevin Durant or James Harden.
Kevin Durant or
Giannis
LeBron or Giannis. There are other guys who are better than you. Yeah. And ultimately, yes, you need more talent. You are correct in that. But even with more talent, Portland isn't going to win a title. It's just not in the cards. So, I mean...
Yeah, it's like...
I don't know. I don't think...
It's like
I just don't think anybody's done anything wrong here from Dame. If Dame's like, I want to stay in Portland, I want to be the man, I want to try to win here, then you got to raise a stink and try to get more talent, onto your team. But it's just not going to happen. Right. Dame Lillard is never going to win a championship ever in Portland. And if he can reconcile that, we should be able to reconcile that too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
and if he can't reconcile it, he might have to reconcile it.
Yeah. Yeah, like Paul George is an instant Hall of Famer. He might be in top 3 MVP conversations this year, but he's a Robin to Kawhi, right? Like these god level players, like definitely pay attention. Like when AD wants out, I'm like, that's cool. When LeBron wants out, I'm like, what? Are you what? You know,
I think I'm with you. I think Paul George in the modern NBA, I think Paul George and Dame Lillard are the best version of mortals. Maybe there's certain guys I'm not sure where they fall.
Yeah,
I don't think Doncic is immortal. I don't think Kawhi is immortal. I think they're different.
Yeah.
But Paul George and Lillard are, I think, two great examples of absolutely special players who just may not have that extra thing that separates them from humankind. They are still men.
And it's tough because, like, Chris Paul is a god. And he has not been close to winning a championship. But,
Got
like,
pretty damn close.
Pretty damn close, but he's a seismic... He's like a meteor that could end a planet, right? Like, he's one of those players that... It's like if he wanted to go to Los Angeles, the NBA has to step in. Be like, we cannot make it that hard for the rest of the league.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Paul is absolutely a god.
Yeah.
A point god. But he's a god. And I don't know where the differentiation is, but you just know.
Yeah, like Julius Randle, god level, you know? And Jason Tatum, mortal.
Alec Burks, god.
The real point god.
Are there any guys who are gods who aren't incredibly great?
Are you like trying to bring up like Draymond Greens or like?
But Draymond Green is great. I'm wondering
What do you
if is it possible to be a god but not like a Hall of Famer? Is that even possible?
You mean
I don't
like
know. I've never
Enes
thought
Freedom?
about this.
He's a troll god. Like, are you talking about
Almost
Jeremy
like-
Lin?
No, I'm almost thinking like JaVale McGee. Is he just so big and so athletic and can do all this stuff? He just isn't that great. You know, he's among the all-time leaders in like per minute in blocks and rebounds and
3
offensive runs,
championships.
all these things. 3 championships. Not a Hall of Fame player, not that great, but very good in his limited capacity. But is he a god just due to his like physical dimensions and stuff? I don't know.
No. You have to have a lot more than that, right?
I tend to agree with you. I'm just raising that idea, and I don't think it's possible. I think that gods are always great, and that's part of what separates them from mortals. But that was a test, and you passed.
Unlike Dame Lillard. Whew.
Who, that mortal ass Dame Lillard?
But can we get into the nitty gritty? Like, I don't know why I said that. This is not a Western. This is not the 1984. Is there a paw? Did they get shot? Did you see that Jane Campion Western?
Is that the new one?
Yeah.
Harder They Fall?
I believe so. The Cumberbatch Western.
Oh no! I did not see that. You're talking about like Way of the Dog or something.
Yes. My bad. Yes.
No, I saw the one where it was a bunch of guys, like cool ass actors, riding around on horses while reggae played.
No, we talked about that last. That's not Jane Campion, man. It's not feminine. It doesn't have masculinity as its central point.
Sure does.
It doesn't reconstruct the idea of the Western man and his weaknesses. Come on.
It may.
It could with reggae. It's talking about cops.
Bo.
Anyway, the Jane Campion movie's pretty awesome. It is a film. Anyway, can we talk about the nitty-gritty of this Dame thing? Because, of course, there's a lot of teams who want Damian Lillard in their squad. Knicks Nation, immediately get those photoshops out, right? Would Dame put the Lakers over the top? I don't know. I see Dame in a Lakers uniform photoshopped all the time. There's a certain Philly contingent that wishes Dame was on that team. Are any of these things going... Is Dame trying to make his team better or his situation better?
I think Dame would be open to a trade to, say, a Philly or something like that if he thought he could be a contender.
You go to LA, right?
I mean, they can't. None of those teams can trade for him.
Westbrook can't be traded for him?
Hell no.
Why not?
What would you add to that?
Yeah, they have no picks, but Taylor Horton Tucker, who it seems like a Blazer already, right? Just like one of those forgettable good players who are kind of power forwards.
Yeah, there's nothing they could add to that deal that would make it
Caruso's
appealing.
not there. Malik Monk.
That's what I'm saying. It's just undoable. Like, you're going to take back one of the more odious contracts in the NBA, and then a couple bad picks. The Lakers already given up their picks.
Yeah, they have no picks to trade. Yeah, the
And
Lakers
the
don't
Clippers have given up their picks too. Like, those, neither one of those can happen.
Wow, so you're saying he's going to rule MSG with the mic and the basketball?
I mean, to me, Philly or New York seems to be a more obvious place for him. You know, I think Dame is a good player. I don't particularly enjoy watching him play unless he's on one of his crazy, like, you know, hot streaks where he's just launching from inside the logo and they're going in.
Right.
Well, other than that, he's just like a small guard who I
Easy,
think is
easy.
very good.
Yeah.
He's a short king.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. He has to go to a contender. Otherwise, what's the point? But I also just feel like we've just spent way too long talking about the Trailblazers. What are we doing?
This is what I'm talking about. Like,
This isn't the pod, Andrew.
done with Dame. This is me.
Okay. All right. We are moving along. Look, hold on. Let me check my notes. What, dude?
Speaking of,
We just spent like 18 minutes on Dame Lillard.
all right.
I'm gonna bleep it. I'm gonna
Speaking
bleep the whole thing.
Speaking of rap,
You know who's
music,
toxic? Bleep. So here's what I want to get your take on. Speaking of toxic players, we got a little international beef brewing. Turkish strongman Enes Freedom has decided to become a Fox News media darling. And one of his first steps in doing this is going after your man, Jeremy Lin.
Wow.
Seems to be a Chinese conspirer.
Right.
Whatever the hell he said.
He accuses Jeremy Lin, who played in China. Jeremy Lin is a Taiwanese from Palo Alto, born in Palo Alto, but he's Taiwanese. His parents were from Taiwan, and there's a lot of very delicate political conflicts between Taiwan and mainland China. So Inez Cantor called him out on it because Inez Cantor freedom is all about that freedom these days. And
Shame on you.
Yeah.
Shame on you, J. Lin 7. Haven't you had enough of that dirty Chinese Communist Party money feeding you to stay silent? How disgusting of you to turn your back against your country and your people. Stand with Taiwan. Stop bowing to money and the dictatorship. Morals over money, brother. Morals over money, brother.
And this
The
will
most
seem
tiresome man in the NBA has spoken.
this will seem like a hot take, but it isn't. And this Cantor has a point here. I don't know if we could be activists and stand with Hong Kong and Daryl Morey and not kind of agree with Enes Kanter freedom here. He's doing it in a different way. Calling out another player is kind of like not great, maybe even bad, but his inclination to do good things is something like I can't really fuck with because I just want people to do good things and I wouldn't do it this way. But him getting his kicks out of being a freedom warrior sounds fine to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but he's also pretty tiresome, as I said.
That is something
him going
I
on
cannot
Tucker
talk
Carlson and saying that his teammates should like shut their mouths and not complain. Like, dude,
But
what are you
he
doing?
thinks he's trying to
What are you
fuck it
doing?
up from the inside, right? He's like, I'm gonna go on Tucker and school him. He
don't
takes
think
pictures
so.
with everybody, John Bolton and him smiling. Everyone is tiring to someone else, right? Like, and it seems feasible for me to believe that Enes Kanter wants good things on the planet. his stance towards Turkey seemed reasonable before he turned into kind of a comedian slash entertainer slash troll. Because people really stood behind him in the last few years and his unique situation in his country and worrying about his family. But now he's kind of turned a corner into entertainer and he's lost a lot of people. I just don't care. I choose not to care about certain things. And this is one of them. If he wants to go on Fox, whatever. If he wants good things, cool. It's Inez Cantor, man.
I would agree with that. I don't think he's a right winger at this point, but maybe that's where he's headed.
Sure.
You know, this is how these things happen, where he decides who his allies are. Oh, it seems to be Fox News. I don't know that he's necessarily doing the math to it.
Yeah.
Maybe he is. Well, you know, when he goes on Tucker Carlson and says that my teammates should shut up, well, you're telling a white dude with some pretty white supremacist sympathies that black guys on your team should shut up. Like, you should probably be aware of what that's coming across of, or you believe it. Like,
Sure.
You know, is he that naive that he thinks that saying guys like whatever Tatum or Brown should be shutting up, and him telling that to a right wing radio host is productive?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I would not be surprised if he, you know, segued into being like a Sebastian Gorka type of like right wing figure over the next like 5 years, because I don't think he'll have a place in the NBA after this kind of stuff.
I mean, he loves wrestling, right? And like the reason why I tune him out is not from disrespect, but maybe it is, right? Because I'm about to say, like, I don't find him especially intellectual or smart at all. And he just seems like kind of emotional, and he's been through a lot. And his own personal story is fascinating. But when he starts editorializing the news and other people's story, he doesn't come across as someone especially thoughtful like Jaylen Brown or Steven Jackson. So I kind of just don't pay attention because his story is interesting, right?
I agree. And I don't really care what
That's what I'm
Inez
saying.
Freedom has to say about anything here.
Yeah.
We're just talking.
I wish he was.
I don't find. I said I don't find him a particularly interesting basketball player. I don't find him particularly interesting as a cultural commentator.
Yeah.
He's just a feral big,
Yeah.
living his life.
I mean, Kyrie Irving has a third eye, and he's not necessarily like all the way liberal, right? Like he kind of is interesting and complicated, like a human being should be. And when he talks, I always kind of like perk up because he does strike me as smart and a thoughtful guy. Inez Cantor is doing like a WWF championship belt thing, right?
I think that's correct. But anyway, yeah, God, can we get to a good topic?
Oh my god.
Who set up our agenda? Dame Lillard, Inez Freedom, who are these guys? All right, let's talk about something that everyone cares deeply about. This is going to be exciting. Pacers teardown.
What? Oh my
Oh, come
god.
on.
Jesus.
Who did this?
Malcolm
Who
Brogdanovic.
put this together?
Right.
Oh. Okay, next on the agenda, the 10-16 Pacers are looking to explore trades for whoever. Miles Turner, Sabonis, Karis LeVert,
Brogdon.
whatever the
Brogdon's
case.
good. Yeah.
Brog Dog.
The Brog Dog. Weren't they trying this last trade deadline? Didn't we find out that everyone was on the table for them, and where there were no deals apparently, so they kept everybody?
They're a boring team.
Oh, I disagree. Come on. You got the SWAT General manning the paint, Miles Turner, and Brogdon sounds like a Klingon character from Star Trek. I rest my case.
You know what, though? You're kind of true. What you're saying is kind of true. They're not that boring of a team. They have some cool players. I like Sabonis. He does some interesting stuff. Turner is like stretch five,
TJ McConnell,
shot swatter, as you
process
mentioned,
legend.
McConnell. Yeah,
I like
for
that
whatever
team.
reason, they are utterly mediocre right now, right?
Yeah.
Their offensive rating is middle of the pack. Their defensive rating is middle of the pack. Their net rating is middle of the pack. They're actually playing worse record-wise than they should be. Their expected win-loss is 14-12, but they're 10-16.
Yeah.
So, maybe they've just gotten unlucky. Whatever the case, they seem to be looking to blow this up.
Smart.
Maybe they shouldn't. I like that we came with the exact opposite conclusions.
Hey, the season's longer than just 1 year. Third eye. But, it's a longer game, so they're not giving up. They're just planning for a different kind of future.
I would also say this. If you say, we're going to blow this down, we're going to throw a fire sale, maybe all you're really trying to do is move Karis LeVert.
Right, exactly.
Just
Or-
theoretically speaking.
Or Sabonis, one player.
I don't know. Maybe they're willing to trade everybody and do what Orlando did a couple years ago, and
If
just
you can
say,
get the right
"Hey,
deals."
we've sure," but you're also taking apart a team that is a known commodity and saying, "Okay, we're willing to just scrap this, and we're going to have some young guys, and we'll see what happens," because they weren't that bad last year. They're mediocre. And 2 years ago, they were 45-28. We sort of viewed them as being a team, and this was when Oladipo was going to be a big part of the team, and then he ended up getting
That's
hurt.
sad. Yeah.
But they were good. They lost in the first round against the Heat. They were never a contender. But again, they were 45-28.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I kind of sound my most NBA heartless. Is I don't think they're gonna beat the Bucks. I don't know, the Sixers even. I don't think they have a chance at the East. And then outside of the East, I don't think they have a chance beating any team that comes out of the West. That said, in Indiana, getting to a conference finals would be thrilling, and I would view that as a success. I don't think they're even that good, but they have good players. The lifespan of these careers is in such a way that I think it's okay not to view an NBA team playing 82 games as a window. Maybe their window is 3 years, and when you look at this team, you're like, Sabonis is good. Miles Turner is one of the better defenders in the league. These are very valuable pieces, but they might die on the vine here. So even though we love them, maybe we can create a winner and get some of those picks from Oklahoma City whenever they decide to cash in, or maybe another team is willing to give up some picks like New York. I don't know. I think it's a reasonable thing to think. That it's out in the public is kind of dumb.
I also wonder if this is an organizational identity thing, where you say, okay, I'm looking at our squad. As you said, Brogdon's a good player. Sabonis is a good player. Turner's a good player. LeVert's useful. And you got these other guys
worth
Justin Holiday and McConnell, your man, Jeremy Lamb. Yeah, whatever. You got some guys who are
Duarte
in
just
that
turned
mix.
51. Yeah.
Oh, isn't he Obi Toppin's older cousin, right?
Yeah, he's the guy at the cookout who always makes you. He's just bossy, sitting in his chair.
But Miles Turner at 25 is still young enough that you can.
He's only 25.
You have 5 years. Yeah, he's young.
Dude, yeah, he's a very good player. I like him.
Let's see if he turned 26. No, he doesn't turn 26 until March.
How is he this young? I thought for sure he was 30. Anyway.
Sabonis is 25.
That makes more sense. Sabonis is not my favorite type of player, but he is really good and a borderline all-star, and he makes most teams better.
I guess my question is, what is your identity as a team? Are you going to be Rick Carlisle's their coach now? We know what his preferences are. Carlisle wants
A big
floor
man.
spacing. He wants threes.
Yeah.
He wants lob catching. He's not a post guy. He doesn't
are
want
you sure?
Sabonis.
But
I am sure.
I mean, I was just thinking Dirk Nowitzki, a spacer, but also a post guy.
I'm not saying he hasn't done that in the past, but just by his discussion of Porzingis, I mean, look, I'm sure he's not dumb. He would, if he has a good post player, he'd go to him. But he has
Nowitzki
not
is a
been going
god.
to Sabonis.
Yeah.
Sabonis is a good post player. He's not incredible, but
Yeah.
they don't use him that way this year.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't think he's a true spacer. He does shoot some threes, but and it's not necessarily something you want him to be doing too much of.
I mean, he shoots 28% from three. It doesn't really work.
Yeah. But I don't know. Those are valuable pieces. Get what you can get. See what's on the market. The draft is everything. They drafted Duarte at number 13 over Moses Moody, Sengun, and Trey Murphy. That's fine, right? Like, Duarte is like a good player to have on any team because he's a high percentage sharpshooter. But you're not. That wasn't a win for them necessarily. I don't know. I would absolutely see what's on the market.
It does seem to be a case where a kind of decision has been made. We're like, you know what? We're done with our guys. That's enough. Enough. I get it.
I mean, I'm sure you could bet on them in Vegas to win it all, but they're not going to win it all. This team is going to get old and retire and never have a chance, right?
Yes.
I mean, I hate to be that simple.
No, they have no chance of winning. No. Sabonis is 13th this year in post touches, so he's definitely getting a decent amount of them.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's less than 4 a game.
How do we turn this into a more interesting conversation? Is there a way to rebuild a team who is in purgatory?
I don't know. My last point about the post ups was Sabonis's post touches are half what they were last year. That was my final point. So
Yeah.
Carlisle does not like the post. Yeah, I know. This is another topic that someone is making us talk about.
Someone.
Lillard, Inez Freedom, and the Pacers.
I mean,
Who did this?
all right. Should we get to the meat of the pod and talk about some positivity finally? Talk about some.
Yes. Will somebody step up?
Can we go back to Zion? Can we talk about that king waiting with his Mountain Dew to take the league by storm yet again?
So, more photos have emerged showing Zion has
Are you talking about the one at the game?
mushroomed.
Yeah.
Yeah, has mushroomed again, and people were saying he looks like the Kool-Aid Man. I think they were saying like that. But when I saw him, I thought he looked like the Kool-Aid Man. I'm not body shaming him because he gained a bunch of weight. We know what happened. I don't put the blame on him per se because we don't know how this is occurring. My thing is just that considering he is on an NBA roster and going to games and around people, and that he lives with his parents, and that there are nutritionists and private chefs and trainers and coaches and doctors and all these people who are around him, I just don't know how this happened. And I say that with no blame towards him at all. I'm just more curious. Is it that he just won't stop ordering like muffalettas? Like he just won't stop it. They're like, dude, you have to curtail the muffalettas. He's like, I will. And then he goes home and orders 6 muffalettas.
He's like,
Is that what's happening here?
I bought a box of bucatini that has 24 other boxes of bucatini in it.
But for real, but he's also lives with his parents. That's why I'm confused here. Are they like, hey, Zion, what are you doing there? He's like,
Wait, why do you think the parents have any jurisdiction over a world-class athlete who's an adult? Like, are they like, stop eating those hollow pasta strands? Like, what can they do?
They live with him. Well, this is
that's
what
all
I'm
it
asking.
takes?
I mean, if they're exerting the control over his life enough to live in the same house with him, I would presume that they have a certain degree of control over him. Otherwise, maybe they don't. But that would be weird, right? As you said, here's this world-class athlete who is, creating generational wealth, and he's living with his parents, and he's like, hey, I'm going to have another box of bucatini. Like, don't do it, Zion. Don't do it, son. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to have it anyway. I'm like, oh, God damn it.
This is weird because
I'm only curious about how this is happening and how he's gaining weight in this structure, which seems to be successful in preventing this from happening in a lot of situations, especially someone who literally is living with his parents.
the parents angle is surprising to me and something I didn't anticipate, but I love my parents quite a bit, and I lived with them throughout my whole childhood. They had no control over what I ate. Come on, man. I'd get those Twinkies in. I'd eat a box of capellini when I felt like it, and they were like, ooh, you've been eating a lot of pasta. I'm like, so be it. I love the hell out of my parents. They didn't have any jurisdiction over that.
I'm not suggesting they can control what he's eating. I just want to know how. I'm just curious as to what's happening. Are his parents like, I don't know, he just eats celery every day, and then he's like, I know, it's weird, and then he goes up and he's just got bucatini in vats smoldering in his like private little stew pot.
I think he's perfect. I think he looks great. I don't think he is in game shape as we think he is, but Mitchell Robinson put on weight and he looks slower. Like, I don't know if there's a right way to do this. He's hurt, so he can't do as much cardio, I'm sure. He can't even play in games and scrimmages. He looks fine. He's always going to be a thick boy, but like, shout out to thick boys, right?
Look, as long as his extra weight doesn't create more problems for his foot. I'm not a doctor. It seems likely that someone with his history of feet problems and his weight and the explosiveness with which he plays could be, courting danger in that regard. But again, I don't know. I'm just more surprised that this is happening. These, in this environment with this kind of scrutiny from everybody else. I'm not blaming him in the least. I'm not saying he has any responsibility here other than to like do what's best for him. Like,
yeah, he doesn't
I don't
do
mean
shit.
for his career. I mean for him. He doesn't owe anybody anything. I always say this about the off season. You're not required to go and work on your game. Your time is yours.
Yeah.
You're required to play in basketball games, you're required to go to practice and do all these things, but summer you're off the clock. Your team can give you a workout plan, they can suggest you do things, they can recommend them, they could furnish them, but you are off the clock. When I am trying to get interviews done over the summer, you call a team, hey, I want to talk to, I don't know, Corey Maggette, random name, maybe someone in the NBA would be more appropriate, but they're like, I don't know who they are, we don't talk to them. Like, they set up their media appearances for during shoot-arounds or after games or before games. During the summer, they're like, I don't even know how to get in contact with them. We don't send text messages during the season to our players. They're not in the gym. We don't know where they are.
We're doing the most basic thing, right? Like the NBA TV analysis. If you win the game, the team is streaking and they're playing together. If the team loses by like a coin flip at the buzzer, they're in peril, man. What are they going to do? Like, the minute Zion gets healthy and loses all the weight, be like, he wants it more now. It worked. We're just like looking at some dude who put on some weight because he's injured and has that body type, and we're like, we're drawing character assassinations out of him. Like, does he even want to be great? I'm like, I'm sure he does. He's hurt. And he's got a body type that's unacceptable to a lot of people, who have similar body types.
Yeah, I don't even care about that part. I know what you're saying. I agree. And I'm avoiding that. I'm just mostly concerned with, like the Pelicans as an organization and the people who are surrounding him. But, I mean, if he was like, you know what, I can't play. I'm just gonna stack bundles.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna get bigger and bigger, and I'm gonna blot out the sun by the time I come back. World, get ready. Great.
I remember being in the Knicks locker room and seeing the buffet come in, the Whole Foods buffet. And I was like, ooh, healthy food, Whole Foods. These are racehorses, man. They need fuel. And they opened it up the tins, and it was like greasy chicken with like vegetables and like potatoes. And I'm like, this could go a whole number of ways depending on what food religion you abide by. But someone could say, like, you shouldn't be serving these guys meat. You should be serving them protein from plants. To which I would say, totally. And another person might say, like, ooh, they should be eating more red meat because they need the fuel. I'm like, totally, whatever you believe, you know? And I was watching all these players gobble this food down, and I'm like, it doesn't seem healthy. I see that oil slick on the food, but it's like warm and delicious, and they're starving because they just played a game. I'm like, there's different ways to do this, and I think like Zion will just get back into shape, you know? And like this is just kind of like a projection of all these armchair medical opinions that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with that because I think ultimately Zion will end up losing this weight, and he can't go through an NBA season and be this size. It's just not. It's just not going to happen. You know, he's just not going to be out there incredibly obese on the court. He just won't be.
This isn't the rough and tumble 90s. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just the style of the game now with this much pace and this much switching, just by nature of the game, he's going to get into shape.
Yeah, but I would also say that, you know, Zion's issues in the past have been on the defensive side where he's not that active, where he doesn't move a lot. So him adding more poundage is probably not going to make him a stronger defensive player, especially since, unless he's just saying, use me at center. That's my fate.
Well, it's funny, right? Because Mitch Robinson needs to put on weight, and Zion Williamson needs to get skinnier in order to be better, both of them. And I'm like, I don't know which one it is, because a fat Zion or a body positive Zion is more imposing in the paint. A skinny Zion might be worse defensively, because the foot speed is kind of instinctual, right? It's not only the weight you're carrying around those bones, it's like your inclination to move one place to anticipate another move. He may not just have that.
I mean, Zion's defense, his rebounding, there are issues with those components of the game to begin with. I mean, I don't know how this is going to affect them. Again, I don't know how long he's going to have this specific physique. You know, maybe we're talking about, you know, in 2 months, he'll look like we're used to. He could be just someone who's able to gain and lose weight extremely fast because he has such a unique frame and, you know, like muscle composition, whatever. Totally possible. But I don't know. There are a lot of questions about him as a player, and I do think if he's unable to really come back this year and be healthy due to foot issues, and he's gained a lot of weight, it's going to be interesting to see what New Orleans is willing to commit to him, you know, going forward. And that's part of the reason that I'm sort of I find it compelling that why there hasn't been more sort of perhaps attention from the people around him who are obviously very interested in him signing like a big extension.
What if he's playing chess? What if he's like, listen, I want to play with RJ in New York. I've made it clear that I wanted to be drafted by the Knicks. But instead of like demanding a trade or dogging it in games, I'm just going to get positive through my body and have everyone chatter around if I want it or not, and just waltz over to play with my buddy RJ and lose all that weight. Which will take like 3 weeks. It's like not a big deal. It's just like, start working out. He's like, okay. It's like, I lost the weight. It's like, that's what happens.
Chess, not checkers.
Yeah.
I like this theory. I'm going to embrace it. So yeah, I think we've solved everything. We finally got to something that we enjoyed talking about. I'm gonna have some words with the interns who made us talk about all those sleepy ass subjects.
Pacers Nation, are you not entertained? Pacers.
Finally,
Pacers squad.
Pacers tear up. But really, overall, I'm looking through this. Nonetheless, it was the perfect pod.
Wow. They said it could still be done. They doubted us.
Yeah, we did it even
And as Cantor.
with the Nez Freedom. Pacers teardown. Damn. Still perfect pod. Cookies.